It's something that affected 1.8 million Canadians last year and 5 times as many women as men. I'm talking about widowhood, that very painful loss that most couples face at some point in their lives. Today, Miriam NEFF joins me from Widow Connection, an outreach designed to support widows around the world. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You and I have been talking about this for a while.
We have. Well, I've been a widow for almost 12 years now. And this is not a ministry you decide you want. You get kind of appointed, elected, I don't know what. I had a wonderful husband, and he went to heaven way before his time because of Lou Gehrig's. Before his time, I shouldn't say that, in God's time. And I have learned through hard times and things that I looked for, a void that I just couldn't find, spiritual, biblically based resources to help me through this tragic, terrible time. It was a terrible time for me. Let's just be real here. And out of that, you know, sometimes when there's a void, eventually through different things, and we can talk about those, God taps you on the shoulder and says, what are you going to do about it?
Now, you lost your husband, you said, to Lou Gehrig's disease, and so that's a terrible disease to watch someone you love suffer through that. How long was he sick for?
3 years. It was typical. He lost ability to move anything, but his mind was great. And he wanted to be at home the whole time, and I would have gone around the world on the equator on my knees to give him what he wanted. So he was at home, and we made it a beautiful time. It was hard. It doesn't mean it's easy. But we had a 400-pound wheelchair and a van, and he went to basketball games with morphine in my backpack. And we just tried to make it a beautiful time for him.
41 years, you and Bob were together. And tell me about those days after he went, because I think caregiving is so intense sometimes that you're really not prepared for the loss of all of that intensity and the person you love.
It just drains everything from you emotionally, physically. And in this case, and for a while I was kind of angry at God about this, but we had picked my retirement date based on a 5-year contract, and that retirement date in my career of 26 years was 2 months after he went to heaven. So the big emptiness was losing my husband. That was huge. But 2 months later, I no longer have my career. And frankly, why get up in the morning that summer? Why bother? You know, there's no husband, there's no high school of kids that I was counseling. My children were grown. And out of that, though, birthed this really amazing calling. I call it a calling. I'm not saying this is a hobby. It's not something I do for fun. Sometimes it's hard, but it's a calling that's really exciting, and I love what I do.
So just going back now to those hard days, part of who Bob was, and I love this, he really inspired you, because even with Lou Gehrig's disease, and as he was seeing his body begin to waste away, he would say to you every day, today is the best day of the rest of your life. How did those words help you through those days?
Who says that? I mean, that's not what we say these days, but he said he knew his next day would be worse. He knew he would lose some other ability. He knew he was closer to leaving this earth, and he was ready for heaven, but he had a lot to live for here. He had a really big career and a lot of international things going on. But he was saying, this is my best day. I have clung to that tenaciously. We all should. We don't know about tomorrow. We don't know whether we'll be here. We don't know what will be the state of the world or our country, or for me, my hometown. So you cling today and say, God, what do you have for me today? This is going to be a good day. Whatever tomorrow is, I don't know. And that's a really good way to live.
One of those lessons, awesome lessons that you learned in that tough time, was that people ultimately can't really comfort you the way that you need to be comforted. You could only find that in God. How did you figure that out and experience it?
People said the most goofy things. Like, I know exactly what you're feeling. A young married guy said this to me. Hello, you can go home and hug your wife. Don't tell me you know exactly what I'm feeling. Or someone say, I've been to the vet a lot lately. My dog has been sick. I wanted to deck that person. I'm sorry, I should have been more gracious. But as people say these things, and it's like nobody understands. And I began to go to Scripture, 103 verses. God told me how much He loved me, the word widow. And I didn't like that word, and I came to embrace it. And I love my position with God as a widow today. it's an elevated position. I mean, I'm special to him. So he showed me what my life was to be about. And he's the only one that really knows how to comfort any of us. Someone else can tell us a little bit if they know us really well, maybe.
Well, I want to dive into this more, the lessons you learned and the purpose you found in this season. I know that you watching are going to be so inspired, so make sure to come back. We're going to find out how she found renewed purpose in the grief of loss. That's next.